we have ourselves some fascinating Deadpool 3 news, which feel very bad for them because this should be the epic. This should be so epic. Even though the script is locked for this, and even though they are
Yeah.
going to be starting to film it, we have a writer strike going on, and a writer strike allowing no one to do any rewrites on this, including guild member Ryan Reynolds. And due to him being a writer, he cannot actually improvise during this film of it. And it's creating a whole bunch of controversy because can you stop that man from improvising? What will you do when they've have some workarounds of what they can possibly do? Which is, the whole he's got a mask on, so we can just
Yeah.
ADR everything if he wanted to. But still, I'm like, I don't know, man. I think that there's more to it than just having to worry about because I know a lot of people have already covered this topic, and I think there's a lot of people who are already saying that it's fine. He's got a mask on, so he could just ADR. But there's a lot of times where he doesn't have a mask on and he's improvising. That's some of the funniest moments with him. And there's so much more to it than just his improv lines. Like there's constant rewriting that's happening and constantly having to figure out and retool, reshaping while you're on set and try to figure out scenes. And this has to be great. And especially with Hugh Jackman returning, does this provide any bit of calmness in your soul, knowing he can just do ADR later on? And is there any other concerns about what's going on with Deadpool 3 for you?
I would just get the script and go, do you guys know what lines are in this? And when they say no, just go, rip it up, explode it, and then just go, well, it's all up here. And whatever I see on camera right now is exactly what's in that script. No, so it's very difficult for him. I would never actually think that improvising would be classed as writing for some reason. I don't know why, but obviously I'm a novice. I don't really know the ins and outs of this. I don't know what the all of the ins and outs of the strike are either. And it's kind of it is a strange thing, but luckily, as you mentioned, he is a character that has a mask, and you go back and watch those early Deadpool movies, and I can tell you can see some things that might have been made up in ADR, as you called it before, ADR the movie. I think it's gonna work out fine for this film. They obviously have the bare basic structure of the plot. I doubt that's gonna change, or they're gonna need it to, and they're just gonna show a photo, show like a shoulder shot of Hugh Jackman with his back, and Ryan Reynolds is just standing there, and they'll just animate the mouth moving along with whatever he says in the booth.
Yeah, it's yeah, okay. Just to throw a little bit of gasoline on the fire here of some people who don't, especially when you got actors like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman who already display that they like to improvise together. And I don't know if the rules mean Ryan Reynolds because he is a screenwriter because he's one of the credited screenwriters for Deadpool 2, so he's a guild member, and I'm assuming he worked on the script for Deadpool 3 as well. I don't know if that means, Hugh Jackman is allowed to improvise, but Ryan Reynolds can't improvise. But if Hugh Jackman's
Yeah,
improvising, like Ryan Reynolds can't just stick to the script then. If Hugh Jackman's improvising, and a big part of the appeal that I think for Hugh Jackman as well was to lean into the comedy and do a lot more of that kind of fun sensibilities. And a lot of times when you got these scenes and especially like character scenes, so much of the time you hear the behind the scenes of when these actors are working together. It's like, oh, we couldn't figure the scene out, so we had to like sit down. We met up in our trailer and we worked it out and we were figuring it out, and then we rewrote it, and then that's what we filmed and ended up making. I hear that story constantly, and so a lot of people are thinking about Ryan Reynolds not being able to improvise, but by proxy, you're also limiting Hugh Jackman from being able to do that as well, because you might have a good script. You might have a solid script on hand, but once you actually start doing the scene, especially for a comedy, you start going, actually, this isn't that funny. And so much of the comedy within, because one thing Hugh Jackman said was he was really drawn to it being a comedy and him getting a chance to showcase this. Like he was referencing the movie 48 Hours, having a bit of that road trip buddy kind of comedy vibe. And now Hugh Jackman's not going to be able to do that as well. So it's more than just Ryan Reynolds. There's a whole ensemble of people who they rely on to be able to, come up with shit while they're rolling the camera. So while I think the movie will be fine, I worry that the movie won't be as great as people may hope for it to be. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I just wish they would end the strike, or not the writers end the strike. I just wish that the studios would see how much this is going to damage their films and their brands by just robbing basically screenwriters of some of the benefits that have made the job bearable for them in the past. And I know there's people out there who are like, well, all those woke movies, that will not be getting any more woke movies. But
Yeah.
any, there's stuff you like there as well. It's not just well, the shows I don't like, all those writers on strike, they don't deserve to get paid. It's not that sort of thing. It's every single writer who's come together for this. So every single series you like, every single movie that you like, they're getting affected as well. You like Top Gun Maverick? I bloody like Top Gun Maverick. Stuff like that would be affected. Do you see what I'm saying? So, you've got to, even if you don't like some of the shows, you've got to kind of come together and realize that this is going to damage the industry across the board. And the stuff you like as well, that's going to be hurt by it too. So I just wish the studios would realize, like, we rely on these guys quite a lot. And there's even been some execs who've come out and said little things like Amy Pascal. She announced that there's a new Spider-Man 4 coming that's been delayed because of the writers' strike. And she's like, we're ready when she said something weird like, we are ready when they are ready to accept, or something like that. I'm misquoting her. But the point is that they know that they rely on these guys, and there's so much stuff getting delayed, especially after the pandemic as well. It's kind of like, can you not just, give these guys a bit extra for all the work they do? Yes, some of them write woke shows that everyone hates. We get you guys who don't like those shows. We understand, but you have to realize that it's just going to affect everything very badly. And the longer it drags out, the worse it is. Ryan bloody Reynolds can't improvise on set. Do you see what I'm saying? Just let the
Yeah.
guy improvise, please.
Let's have some wiggle room here.
Yeah.
Because then that's where I don't know. They haven't even clarified if he's not allowed to improvise on set. Because do you remember when the writer strike was happening? It was like 15 years ago, when the talk show hosts were still doing the shows, but they couldn't have their writers conducting
Yeah.
any of it. The the talk show hosts like
But
Conan
he's part of the
O'Brien.
guild.
Exactly. They're part of the
Yeah.
guild, and yet they
Okay.
were able to still do their shows, and they're technically doing these bits, with the audience and whatever, where they are improvising the whole time, and it's still their. So I'm like, okay, but what is the rule here? Is it
Yeah.
completely different for a talk show when they're credited as like one of the head writers of the series as well? So I don't know. It's sad. And then if we get the SAG strike going on too, then expect massive. I think that would actually help the SAG strike weirdly, because if the SAGs, I mean, of course, it would help for the actors who deserve to have everything that they're asking for. I don't really know much about it. I'm just saying that to be nice. I don't really know what they're asking for. But that I think would create a wave as well, something that would be like propulsive and push things forward, where we're like, all right, we really need to get shit together, because now we don't have our actors and writers. And if they can solve something with what I've heard is that if they solve it with their actors, if the SAG strike does happen, that could really help out with what they want to solve with the writers as well. So it could be like a twofold, like, dramatic effect to lead everything in a positive direction overall.
Yeah.
Um,
Just get to a point where everyone wins. You
yeah,
don't have to give in to every demand. Just work with those guys. Try and, explain why stuff's the way it is now.
mhm.
Just work it out. Just come together, please. I want what's best for everyone. And I hope those guys get what they deserve.
You're
Because they
such a
do
good person.
deserve a lot. You don't realize how much writing goes into this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and the constant writing, the constant. Before you know it, there'll be an editor strike, and nothing will be happening.